Having Natalia live by you, well, at first it was okay. And then she started sitting on our doorsteps waiting for us to come home. And then she'd follow us in the house. In my house, the few times she was there, she'd walk through and look at things and pick things up and look at it, and just like she was casing the joint.
It was always in the back of your mind, is she gonna be around? Is she watching? Is she coming over? Like, you know, even when we would leave, you know, peeking out the window, the front window, like, is she there? Is she watching? Can I leave? Because I gotta go somewhere. I don't wanna get trapped in a conversation.
I still talk to her. I just had to kind of enforce boundaries a little bit more, because if not, the minute we got home, she would come over or she would call me constantly.
She knew when people come, when they come home, when they left, and she was really a pest to everybody.
She would call and text me a lot, which was fine. I mean, I just think she was very lonely over there and didn't have a lot of people around her.
Our neighbors have our phone number. And so if they need anything, they know they can call us. They know they can pop over, ask us for something, they need help. We just try, I mean, it's the Midwestern thing. Just be a good neighbor. And, you know, if you're a good neighbor, they're gonna be a good neighbor, and we'll help each other out. It's that kind of vibe. That was quickly taken advantage of, in the sense that Natalia would call a lot to see when we would be home. We would be at like a soccer game for our son, and she would call 2-3 times, to the point where like, hey, you gotta stop calling us, please.
So I just had to tell her, you know, I wasn't offended. It was just more like, you know, Natalia, like, we're busy. Like, I'm trying to enjoy my son's soccer game. So I need you not to call me, and I'll call you when I get home.
You know, but as soon as we got home, she saw our car pull in the driveway. She would shoot right across the street and try to, you know, before we had time to decompress, anything like that, latched on pretty quick to wanting to know where we were, when we were going to be home, at all times.
Nobody liked her. Nobody. They kind of felt sorry for her, but they were leery about her and really didn't want her around. And everybody was complaining all the time about her, calling the office and saying that she's waiting on your doorstep, and just really eerie. They said, well, you know, we're watching her, but we have to take certain steps to evict somebody, and we're taking the process. I said, well, good.
I think people were creeped out by her. This sounds so terrible, but anytime there was like a sighting of her, it's like someone came to me and said, I saw her today and this is what she was doing. Like, she was like the talk of the town.
I come home one day and Natalia was in the house, had my refrigerator door open, getting a Coke, getting chips, and just looking around. And I said, you don't need to be back here. You go back up front. And after that, I started locking my doors. And then my neighbor said she come in her house one time, I think, and she didn't like it either, so she started locking her screen door so she couldn't get in.
But she was always hungry, always wanting food. She's a sly fox, because she could con you in just her way. And everybody dreaded it. She was scary.
Westfield 911, what's your emergency?
I'm stalking one of my neighbors. I want to hurt them. I'm afraid of what might happen if someone doesn't help me.
I'm going to send some help.
While living at the Union Street apartments, Natalia calls the police on herself to tell them that she'd been stalking a neighbor and she had thoughts of wanting to harm others.
What's your name?
Natalia Barnett.
I'm aware that Natalia contacted 911 a couple of times while she was living in that apartment and told the officers that she was attempting to burn down her apartment complex using her microwave, trying to start a fire in her microwave.
Please hurry.
Right after that, she was always acting really strange. One day we got to talking. I said, "Why aren't you living with your mom and dad?" She goes, "Oh, they're afraid of me." I said, "Why?" And she says, "'Cause I took a knife to them one night, you know," and she just had this strange look in her eye like it's a normal thing.
It wasn't until she started talking to me more in depth about the history with her family. And she said, "Well, I tried to kill my mom." And I just was asking her more questions like, "Well, what happened? How did you try to do that?"
I stood over them with a knife, so they took all the knives away. And then I tried to poison them, so I had to live in the garage for a while. It's like a serial killer or something. It's how casually they put attempted murder into a conversation.
Like, so what? You know, oh, well. Oh, gee, I pulled a knife on my parents. Big deal. You know, that's the attitude you got from her.
It's just kind of like, what? What do we do with this information? We're not social workers. We're not therapists. Like, why would you tell me that? And how do you expect me to handle this information?
You know, it was hard for us to understand how she was just left in that apartment by herself.
Wow, she just freely offered up that she tried to kill her mom. You know, like, that's weird.
But then I also think if I had somebody in my home that I thought was a threat to my other kids, you know, what would I do?
Like, again, if I thought she was a child that couldn't take care of herself, this would be a different conversation. But at what point do I start worrying about if I cut ties with this person? It's like a bad breakup. Like, if I break up with you, are you gonna go crazy? If I help and then all of a sudden I don't help, are you gonna be standing over my bed at the end of the night, you know, with a knife?
While Natalia is in her own apartment in Westfield, Indiana, she's fine. She's looking in the beauty colleges. She's hanging her own coat rack on the wall. Nothing in there is, this person is dependent on others. And back in my house, life was fantastic. It really was. Everything was wonderful. Everything was working right.
Jake, he's on TV. There's now a book coming. At this point in time, Christine's sense of self-worth and ego was big because of Jacob's success.
I don't particularly understand the celebrity status I had as a child because, like, as far as I'm aware, I don't feel that the accomplishments that I had as a young teenager were super extraordinary, or at least I didn't feel that way. I guess they're a little weird, but there's a lot of kids who do impressive things. I remember struggling with some ego problems afterwards, where, like, you know, I felt like, oh, I'm hot shit. I'm going around, flying to different places, talking about math. It did take me some time to, you know, cool down, come back to earth.